Good morning, everyone. It's Maiden. Good morning. It's Friday, December 29th. Happy New Year's Eve. It's coming up real fast, and then we're going to be in 2018, and I just am very excited about what God has put on my heart for 2018. It's going to be a great year. Okay, I want to thank everyone for all the kind wishes and love and care, and um, just continue to keep us in your prayers. We're coming back into this court atmosphere, which has been very corrupt in New Mexico. I've been in these cases for going on now. These are the 6th year, if you can believe that. And this is against Ditech, and they've been very corrupt. And this attorney firm that is representing them are very they're just one of the too big to fail bully systems of corruption in this law firm. So so I'm dealing. It's a David and Goliath situation I'm dealing with, and I just need your prayers, you guys, in your favor, because this has been very damaging to my heart and my system to fight. There's a dynamic of warfare that doesn't have to do with guns and weapons of this world, but the Bible talks about that these are spiritual high places of darkness, of this deep slave spirit of that I am confronting for one and all in the courts regarding our sectors of slavery and our finance, and where the wealth is hidden. God has shown me where it is, and very few people know it's really a classified issue and in its entirety. And they really haven't had anybody break through that, and through the support of my husband to give me the space to just research and track and find it, we found it. And so it's very real. It's all evidenced in law, and it's just that I am a pro se defense standing, with my husband, and I were standing alone, and the attorney firms that we are fighting, one of our cases is against Allstate, a Delaware corporation, and then the other is Ditech, which is a Delaware corporation, and the Aquin was a Delaware corporation, and then our case that got lost in appeals court, which I have no idea even where it is now, that is also PNC, which is another Delaware corporation. So these Delaware corporate structures have never been fought, especially by somebody who's pro se defense. And as little as we are, but we have that, God shows me we have that power, but it is to walk in this faith and care of all. So because we're all being affected by it. So I just want to pray that you guys pray for favor, okay? Because it's very hard. Okay, they bully me. They stand in court in front of the judge and literally ask the judge, "What am I doing there?" Okay, and there's such a disrespect for pro se defendants and pro se plaintiffs, because there really is no structure to support somebody as little as me standing against these giant corporate behemoths. So I need miracle power. God just needs to really show up. Okay, so I need you guys to keep that in prayer. I want to go over CBS this morning, some of the follow-up here, because there's some key issues that they spoke about. I want to do a shout out to CBS this morning, and they have Vladimir and Dana and Brianna carrying the show for Nora and Gail. And today's Gail's birthday, and I want to thank them personally, Gail and Nora, for just their bravery, their strength as women in the journalism field, and just how strong they are in journalism. And I just want to thank them personally for their contribution. I want to say happy birthday to Gail. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Gail. Happy birthday to you. So I just thank you guys for being there and just being strong. Okay, it means so much that you do that. And thank you to all of the local journalists that are there on their behalf. Okay, so I want to go over some of the stories this morning. One of the ones that really stood out to me, and again, I look at everything through a multi-dimensional perspective that many people do not have. That is a classified kind of took me. My forensics training, actually, I fell through a rabbit hole. So I'm just living my normal life before that in research, and then all of a sudden I went into forensics, and it was a completely different paradigm. And I definitely fell through a rabbit hole and landed in some very classified territory. And so I've had to really be on the transparent side of care, and really acquiesce to the highest powers in the world, really, that are watching over everybody to see, are they a friend, are they a foe, where are they? And God has really helped me to find my place and to establish trust. And I am asking for the invitation to be visible so I can get busy in this, because right now I'm just completely invisible. But that's okay. I mean, I've had to be, I've had to learn how to stand. I've had to learn, just God has had to do a miracle work in my life to stand ground genuinely for everyone, and let this forgiveness just come into my life, because I've had a lot of violations happen to me, my brother and I, as children. We became wards of the court of Arizona and California. I did, of California. My brother and I were separated as we became wards of the court of Arizona. We got given to my father, my biological father, and then we were separated after that in California when we moved there. And then I went back into foster homes alone, and I've been, kind of on my own since we went back into foster homes. So I just want to say that when you become a ward of the court, you're literally, your parents are the court, okay? And if they lose you, which they did with me, it can, you're basically on your own, and that in America can be difficult to break away from that whole, it's a strange feeling, just growing up without parents, growing up without family. It's just a very, very strange paradigm. And by the hand of God, I'm okay. And I've been a Christian since 1984. And now it's 2018, and I have a very big history of serving God underneath me. Now, one of the stories at CBS this morning was about the Branch Davidian cult by David Koresh. Now, this is a portfolio. They brought it out in the way of the story at CBS. They just basically talked about the ATF, the police, the FBI, the fire, the investigators, all of our security forces that got involved with this particular person 25 years ago, who was leading a group of people to, this was only they only had 80 people. So you're going, okay, why was this such a national news story? And the reason why was because of the Davidian perpetuity. Now, if you do a study on the Davidian family or the Davidian perpetuity or the Davidian estate or dynasty, we're going back to the King David. Okay, and that is still alive today, is very relevant, because when you give your life to Jesus Christ, we're all grafted in, okay? And it's a huge perpetuity, it's a secondary atmosphere and paradigm. And so when you look at it from this from the superficial primary sectors, you're looking at this guy, David Koresh, in Waco, Texas, and he's a preacher apparently, and he took people into a paradigm of entrapment in the church. That is how you can identify a cult, is that it isn't somebody that, God is calling people to step up into their holy calling. But when they do that in the rightness of God, is they don't ever own these people, okay? They don't trap them. They don't hold them hostage. They don't take them to remote places and hide them and lock them up and tell them they can't leave. They don't rape them. They don't create babies there's just all the sexual, there's, in a lot of the different religions, the leader wants you to literally give them your life, completely, and, surrender your life to this leader. That is not godly. That is so not what God is about. Okay? Jesus Christ is alive. He is invisible. He is very present in quantum and all of that. So, and he says in his word, I don't think like you. I am not like you. I did create you in the image of myself. But that doesn't mean that we have aspired to that. In fact, history shows that mankind has gone a little off track with his freedoms and gone into the realms of wickedness and evil, and that has been where the systems have been created around the wickedness and the evil sectors. So God is saying you can turn this around now and walk in righteousness and infrastructure of righteousness, and you're going to walk into the quantification therein, and it is a great, wealthy, very prosperous place of understanding. So we definitely, our founding fathers and all of that, they wanted to make sure that the country was secure under all circumstances, so they hid the dynasty trusts under the tax structures. And so what is hiding there under the tax structures, the predatory tax structures of Delaware, is all 50 states of the United States of America, all asset portfolios, and the perpetuities is exactly that therein. So the perpetuities, once again, comes back to the last name, surnames of all of America. Okay, so Davidian is a big one. It's the perpetuity goes back to Israel. It's a big thing. So this guy picked the Davidian cult, branch of Davidian cult, and he went for it, and he got shot down. Now, America has our forces, our armed forces, which is our every division of our armed forces, from our invisible intelligence all the way to our frontline responders. They are given orders to protect specific things, and oftentimes they don't even know what is the importance, because in this particular case, one man, David Koresh, with 80 people, it doesn't look like a threat. You're going, okay, how come this was so big? Well, it's because of the Davidian association, big time. That goes into a huge asset portfolio, all kinds of stuff. Now, this has a precedence for a cult. And again, a cult is a preacher or pastor, woman or man, that is creating a group of people that are really in a place of entrapment. They are in a church. They are told that they alone are special. They alone are this or that or blah, blah, blah. It's just this really, really not good space, man. And they don't really want anybody else to join. They just want a specific amount of people, and that's it. And they want to keep it small, and they want to keep it intimate, and they want to keep it private, and blah, blah. And if they meet in the people's homes and they don't let it just everybody in, that's predatory. They can justify it all they want, but if people are meeting in their homes and they're not allowed to just have an open door policy of everybody come, then that's subject to this entrapment of a cult. Okay, now there's a lot of money involved, and that's a whole nother situation I can't really talk about right now. Okay, so I just want to say that the ATF, the police, the FBI, the fire and rescue, or the fire department was there, the investigators, and this is a 25-year-old portfolio just on the Waco, Texas, David Koresh issue. But the Davidian asset portfolio goes way back, dude, big time. So I just want to say that I as a leader, on a hypothetical presidential level, I don't feel like that these groups of security forces are in the know as much as they should be. I don't believe that they are correct on their paperwork in terms of value. I have evidence to see that they are worth more dead than alive. And this is all very wrong, okay, as far as they're in the know. When our UPS is delivering guns to in this case, this cult owner person, and he was amassing guns. He was obviously involved in sexual promiscuity of the minors there and statutory rape. He had 21 children. He allowed to leave. Apparently, they're all in his name. So that's interesting as far as perpetuity is involved. And then this guy was, he had an intelligence, but he was also very driven by his own agendas of kind of madness, really. Again, he wouldn't let anybody leave. He had a really hard, this is kind of like the Jones thing in the other guy that was Jim Jones, okay, in Guyana, or that went badly, okay, because he's moving people around. He's getting them in a remote situation, saying he's going to rescue them, and then he's locking them up and poisoning them and killing all of them, okay? So that was a gigantic death benefit portfolio on behalf of this gentleman, who that portfolio was seized, and now under the name of Jones, which is now the new Alabama Alabama leadership went under the name of Jones. So, I mean, these are things you have to kind of understand. These paradigms are alive, okay, working in perpetuity very quietly. So the tax issues are running rickshaw over these bigger issues of of perpetuity to be a distraction to keep us enslaved. Now we have this 400 to 500 page now new tax thing, and obviously they didn't just do away with it because people are rushing to pay their taxes now. And this is more of the same song and dance of slavery. So I'm just very disappointed. I thought we were going in another direction. And just because there's going to be dividends coming out of the tax thing, there is, that does not mean it's like having somebody who's hungry and starving, on the streets in poverty, you can throw them Scooby snacks. You can throw them dog biscuits. Even in the Bible it says you can eat from the crumbs of the master's table. But that is not freedom. Okay? So we have got to get in a very real place. If you guys want to keep tax, you can tax sin. All the sin sectors, you can be busy taxing those and bringing the incentive to, and no tax, to everything, every action that is going into our society and democracy and flow of commerce that is going into sectors that are positive, that are building, that are progressing in a way that does not violate the human life. Okay? So you can turn this around, but it needs to be done immediately. So in terms of charitable giving, charity is an ambiance. True charity is, the word is love. So when you're giving to love, there is a quantification that needs to be there in that transaction. And it isn't just in the money that's being given to the charity. It is in, the quantification is in the actual application, the practical application of that transaction. So in other words, there's an undervaluation on charitable giving right now, because you're only applying value to the dollar that is going in. You're not quantifying the value of the volunteer that is actually applying their abilities to this charitable thing. So there's an undervaluation, there's an under-quantification. Okay, now it is about, the issue is apparently in the new work, the new tax document, there is an option here to double the standard. It's a double standard. Now, this is a lot of the criminality, why the criminality has happened. Everybody knows what a double standard is, okay, with the way that they think of it. In the most majority of people's minds, when you bring up to them, what is a double standard? Explain it to me. They're going to say that it's a hypocrisy, that there's one standard for one thing and another standard for something else under the same name. And it is two sets of outcomes, one applied to the rich most of the time, and one applied to the poor most of the time. Double standard. Or you can see it in male sectors, strong male sectors, only men-only sectors, where there's a double standard for men to a different outcome for women. Or, there's just a lot of different ways it can apply. So in primary understandings, those are the answers you receive. But in secondary and beyond paradigms of a parallel reality, running tandem to this primary is running tandem to the secondary, and they're all therein. Standard is actually a metric of measure. It's a measure of wealth or value. So what we have now in our current system is an inadequate standard of measure. And is it applicable? Yes. But is it antiquated? Absolutely. And what is the evidence of that? Macro, micro economics. Okay, so macro, micro, all of that, there's more there we can't get into. It's very deep math, okay? But that is on the table. I challenge you right there to bring the measure onto the table. So when you see a standard double measure, that measure, the beginning measure, is a poverty measure, okay, compared to the magnitude of commerce, okay, the potential of all of our commerce of America. Just look at America first. If you look at the full measure of potential of American commerce, and then you line that measure up, that whole paradigm of you step back and you look at the panoramic of the potential. And then you look in your wallet, you pull out your dollar and you go, okay, is this standard of measure going to actually be something that I can use to fulfill the full potential in my life? I'm going to tell you right now that the fact that that dollar you're holding is a fiat currency, you're being undermined there, number one. Number two, your actual value of worth in our system is all built on slave wages. Okay, so unless you get yourself into a paradigm of, like Warren Buffett says, compounded value, we're going against ourselves as a nation rather than forward into where we need to be. Okay, so when you're looking at the need of speed, which is what we all have to get really, really clear through our courts and through our banks and through our minds as people in America and throughout the world, really, is that when we went digital, we took ourselves out of a standard measure and we catapulted ourselves into macro, micro, and all of therein, bioeconomics, okay? But they have not opened, you guys at the top 1% have not allowed the people to run therein, okay? So we're behind, is my point. Okay, we're behind. And to continue to tax everything that's righteous, everything that's good, everything that is going in a positive direction towards righteousness, to tax that direction equal to the sin tax, we don't have a moral compass in our country. Okay, because God says your money is going to be where your heart is. So if your heart is in wickedness and you're saying that our democracy is a free democracy to establish privatization in wickedness, you are undermining your own objectives of prosperity, freedom, sovereignty, because sovereignty is a sovereign being. If you look at that, that is a sovereign being that is ascending, not descending. Sovereign being is got a organic, thriving, and free and positive outflows in their lives, and for the good. Okay, specifically for the good. So our structures need to have a higher valuation for the good, and tax and heavily our sin, to discourage. And people still making their own free choices, but they're paying for it. Okay? So now in sovereignty, the money of goodness is a different set of money than if you decide because you have a free choice, right? And America has to decide her moral compass, because right now she took it away in the courts. You took the American people and you lowered them lower than the contract in civil court. And the evidence of that is the corporate fiction of secondary that you can't see. It's a parallel reality of the secondary corporate fiction on every human life. And you created laws that doesn't allow me as a human being, propria persona, to come in and to defend my straw man. You won't let me do that. You've stopped me from doing that. Okay, not just me, but you've stopped all mankind of America from defending her corporation. Okay, and you are requiring in court that an attorney step in there, and that is predatory and biased because the attorney is beholden to the agendas of the bar and the agendas of the, they're not champions. They can't, official attorneys cannot be champions of freedom because they're beholden to the bar. Okay. All right, so as a free forensics investigator of contract and understanding law, I need an appointment by the church as a missionary, which I've proven to be able to step in on any jurisdiction and describe to the judge what we're dealing with here. Okay? And until President Trump can get our judicial system back in rightful order, where the human life is the highest value, animals and plants and everything else that's alive is right underneath their stewardship, and then the contract is in civil where it is, but the human life value in civil court exceeds all values of anything else. And if a propria persona, human life person walks in the door and understands what they're doing, that they get complete respect by the entire system to defend their corporate identity, which is being blocked right now as I speak. Okay? So it's very predatory and very biased, and our courts are being held hostage right now. Okay? So I really need God to do a miracle to release our courts back to their proper order, which is ecclesiastical jurisdiction on every human life, and then all therein follows in the lower court orders. Okay? So that way the perpetuity can be protected. All right? The tax laws are not they're not judging the Delaware structures. Okay? And until that happens, we're going to be slavery. We're going to be enslaved. All of us, head to toe. All right? Doesn't matter how much money you have. So if you think your money's going to get you out of this, I'm sorry, but it's not. Until we know we're free, we're not free. All right. So General Kelly right now is with President Trump on his highest staff. Apparently, there is a 34% decline of the White House staff. It's the greatest decline of White House staff in the history of the United States of America. President Reagan came in at 17%, and he was a very conservative president. And President Trump is not trusting people. That is what this number is, 34%. Nobody's in the office. He is not trusting. He is not confident that the people that he would be hiring would be absolutely working for him. He is getting around these lobbyists, and he is getting around these stone walls, and he is breaking down these cabal structures that I am dealing with every single day in Santa Fe. Now, the other thing about the tax criminality is that even though in Washington, D.C., you guys are passing these laws, in actual reality, the laws are only for Washington, D.C. It is the prerogative of the states to be united and follow suit. But in cabal worlds, they don't follow suit. They do exactly what they want. So our Congress and our House, by continuing to tax the way that you are, especially charitable givings and stuff like that, you are sending a very confusing message to our law enforcements throughout our states that we're not going to change the value on your life. And we're not, you guys really are not fighting for the American people if you continue to tax righteousness and leave, leave these structures there of privatization and really horrific, sinful structures. You know which ones are causing death. You know which structures are causing pain, death, despair, poverty. You know which structures are killing people. Marijuana is not one of them. Hasn't ever been even legal. So that is not your problem. Your problem is in the legal structures that are killing people. Okay? You've got all kinds of sexual predatory sectors killing people, trafficking human lives and killing them, and creating whores and prostitutes out of poverty, beautiful women that can't find the light of day anymore because they're drug addicted, they're under pimps, they're under predatory domination and control of subjugation, cartels, and different things like that. That's just one. We've got our banking cartels, which is the IMF, and they reach out. We've got our Federal Reserve filled with cartels, and we still don't even know who owns them. And then we've just gotten in CBS News this morning said that it was the Romanian officials that hackers were connected to the hacking of the election, and those officials apparently are Eastern Romanian, which lines up with Romania and very close to Russian ties, right? So I still have not heard anything about the Federal Reserve ownership there. And we do have a new person in there, but if they're going to do status quo, we're still enslaved. Okay? So Trump, President Trump, if you have had a lot of pressure on your life to, only you really understand if you've been threatened, if you've been supposedly bullied, if you've been incarcerated, if you've been kept beyond your will, where you've been cornered and you've been told, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, legal stuff that you really can do, but they're saying you can't do. I want to ask you that, are you willing to take this much heat and not really make the impact that you want to? Or are you going to push this envelope and take everybody to task about bringing forward a sin tax, S-I-N tax, on all sin indulgences? So past a certain point in drinking, you're indulging. Past a certain point in smoking, you're indulging. Past a certain point in overtures of connection, you're indulging. You're going beyond where you should be. Okay, so crime should not pay, is my point. And sin should not pay, is my point. And all righteous living should pay very well. And all help and all care and all building of goodness should pay. So this is my point, Mr. President. If you will stand in practical application of finance, in righteousness, and in our structures to return value to those who are on the right side of the law, because they don't get any value. Okay, you only see commerce wheels turning when we see criminal behavior. But if you will flip that and change that and turn it to that, we are now bringing incentives forward for all good works, all good faith, all good stuff that is evidenced and substantiated. There you go. That's huge. Okay. So as far as President Trump's, depending on a small inner circle of friends, we've got Vice President Pence in there. We've got General Kelly in there. We've got his sons and his daughter there, his son-in-law in there. I'm not really sure who all is in there. And I know for sure he doesn't have a forensics expert in there. And I offer my services to him on that. Okay, so there is a, moving along, I want to go back to the consumer retail issues because we are in a spirit of giving. We are in a spirit of buying and returning gifts and all of that. And I want to emphasize the consumer protections, okay, because we've got some sectors here that are underdeveloped, okay. So we have a Miss America pageant, right? What's the sector? It's a beauty sector, okay. What is a beauty sector? The beauty sector is a very ancient, old sector. It should be governed and guided by our healthcare system, opening a trade for beauty products that have been tested for purity. Okay, so our consumer protections in the beauty industry has to do with all products being tested to make sure that you're not putting aluminum in your eyes, and you're not putting lead in your eyes, and you're not putting mercury in your eyes, or some kind of a toxic chemical near your eyes, on your face, in your mouth, on your teeth, in there, anywhere in your body. Hello. It flows into fashion because there's certain underwear, panties, and bras that are causing harm. Okay, and there's toxins in the fabrics or any of the some of the stuff is really, really, really negative, man, and it's very destructive and damaging. So our trade, consumer trade, is got us toxins breach, okay, and it is a systemic breach of different poisons in different things, and it's a slow imbeciling or weakening of the human life, and that needs to stop. Okay, so we need to get on a higher grade of purity in all of our sectors, a higher grade of ergonomic design, a higher grade of choices, because there's a waste simply because a waste factor is happening out of this determination. When you're buying something, you're not qualifying the buy, okay? You're impulsively buying because that's what slaves do. They impulsively take the atmosphere of abundance and they go run and they spend it, hurry and do it to have something rather than nothing to show for it. But then when they get it home, it's cheap plastic crap and they are not happy with how they spent their money. Or they're just hurrying up and buying something out of duress or manipulation of the season, and they're not really, really looking at the quality of the buying, and they're not looking at the qualifying of the buying to make sure that they're dealing with a honest seller. Okay, so if you go into a Walmart and you buy toxic atmosphere products, and they say right on there, made in China, okay? Who is responsible for that product? Poison product going into the mouth of a child, of a parent that bought it to bless their child with the toy, but then the toy goes into the mouth, or the powder goes on the butt, or the, whatever it is, the product has got a toxin in it. Who's responsible for that? That is called a consumer protection breach. Okay, it's a toxin breach, and that is the responsibility of all parties that are bringing that to the table for the consumer to purchase. It's not the consumer's job to touch that issue. It is the job of the person producing the product. Okay, that is their job. And if they continue to produce products that are filled with toxins, that is illegal. Okay, there's no other way to look at that. It is illegal. Now, if they're producing a pure product like an alcohol, like a whiskey or a alcohol, and then the physiological makeup of the person who's drinking that product becomes poisoned because their body does not assimilate alcohol like Native American tribal indigenous nations. Yeah, that's a sabotage of that entire sector to stay inebriated and sick and dying so that they don't ever become fully empowered. So that is an undermining and that is a breach. Okay, so you guys have got to understand that there's so many holes here. In New Mexico, we have a governor who's actually requiring the brunt of destruction to be on the Native Americans who are drinking and the people that are drinking, when the 99.9% of New Mexico is indigenous tribal nations. Right. So our governor is issuing tons of liquor licenses to bring these people under subjection to, I mean, it is terrible what's happening here in New Mexico. Okay, so so the money, the online money, this is $800 billion of online sales. Okay, so on Christmas, or the day before Christmas, or right before Christmas, you've got your big selling days, brick and mortar and online. You've got $800 billion flowing, and then they're returning things now. And they're taking the returns heavily into brick and mortar, and to the tune of $90 billion, which is over 10% of the original amount. So over 10% of the original amount is going back into the system on the brick and mortar. Okay, are you guys with me? Okay, so what do we have here? Hold on.